Egypt is a very rich country when it comes to tourism. We do have many types of tourism, whether it's cultural, it's entertainment, it's our nature, which so many people coming from all over the world are keen to come and to enjoy our nature here. It's sports tourism, medical tourism, and even wedding tourism. I don't know if you know that we do have wedding tourism here in Egypt or no, but simply we do have. We are very much delighted to have with us our tour guide and our tourism expert, Mr. Emad Hamdy, who is going to tell us more about cultural tourism and how to promote this very important segment. Thank you very much for being with us, sir. And let's start with what we call cultural tourism. Can we define first, before going into details, what cultural tourism is?
Tourism mainly depends on visiting the many sightseeings, different places of monuments in Egypt, like the pyramids, like the museums, like all the historical places in Egypt. So it's like a general description of the cultural tourism. Of course, we have some special programs for the cultural tourism, like the educational programs and some other programs related to the study of the archaeology, but mainly that's the main definition, as we said.
This is my question, or this is why I've asked this question, to make this difference between this and that, because there are there are segments, if I may call it this way. There are people or students or let's say researchers who go to museums specifically for educational purposes, others for just entertainment and just for enjoying themselves. And in my humble opinion, when it comes to the Egyptians, when they do have their kids going to museums, this is to promote their sense of belonging to the country, knowing well that they are coming from a very rich country, which they should be proud of. If you want to elaborate on that.
Exactly. The things that we need to do is to teaching the little students how to understand the ancient Egyptian civilization. For example, we teach them the alphabets of the hieroglyph, how to read in a proper way, how to write their names and hieroglyph and stuff like that, especially for the kids and the young students. But when we come to the level of those students who studied the Egyptology, we promote the information. We give them more specific knowledge about the Egyptology, about the ancient Egyptian religion, about the culture, the society, the military life, the social life in ancient Egypt. And for those who are more specialized in Egyptology, we gave them specific courses about the Egyptology and about the ancient Egyptian history in general.
Yeah. Sir, I don't know why, while you were talking, I just remembered even how we are still practicing some habits which our ancestors thousands of years ago were practicing them. And this means that we are still enjoying these genes from the old Egyptian civilization until the moment. Do you think, sir, that studying archaeology, studying Egyptology, and studying more about our history, this is going to lead us more and more to know who are we and who the Egyptians really are?
It's a main question about our identity, because some people still argue about the Egyptian identity. So some of them argue if Egypt have an Arab origin or Islamic origin or a Coptic origin. We are just Egyptians, which can absorb all of these definitions that we just mentioned. So Egypt enjoying different cultural phases, so we can say that we are a Muslim country, we are an Arab country, we have a background of the Coptic civilization, and we also at the end we are Egyptians. This
Islamic, Arab, Mediterranean, African, you name it. But I'm asking this, sir, because I really want our cultural tourism to come from this concept, the melting pot. Egypt was the melting pot, where all these civilizations were melted together to come up with this wonderful mix of an Egyptian.
Only the people who studied the history in depth who can understand this fact, because those who didn't really know much about history, they can make the history specifically related to a time period. So some of them believe that the history starts from the 7th century or before that or after that, and we are a country that started from the 4th millennium BC. This is the main thing that we need to talk about history, and this is what we tell the people when they come over here. They wondering about some questions, about some facts, about some information about Egypt. Me personally, this is what I do experience, that I just saw some people who don't really know much about Egypt. They know a lot of wrong information about the ancient Egyptian civilization. Some of them call the pharaonic civilization. We argue about this name because it's better to say that the Egyptian civilization. It's much better to say that the ancient Egyptian kings, not the pharaohs, because this is also another thing to argue about. So we are talking.
And still, until the moment, there are
time.
people who think that Copt meaning Christian. No, Copt meaning Egyptian. I am a Muslim Copt.
This is also one of the things that have a lot of misunderstanding about civilization.
But sir, here I'm going to take it to a personal experience, if you permit me to. When you were there in a historic site, in one of our very rich museums we have, and you are in front of one of our ancestors' statue, for example, and you feel that you look similar in a way, the same facial features, the same skin color, the same way of expressing yourself. So, I mean, the statue may having a gesture or a move which you really do every single day, and until today. How you can convey this message to our tourists, even to make them feel sure that they are now in front of one of the grandsons of the statue they are looking at?
When they go, for example, to the villages and the Upper Egypt, they themselves can see the similarities in the traditional, the customs and the traditions of the people in Upper Egypt. For example, they see some similarities between the local dresses for the galabiyas and the ancient Egyptian garments. They argue if this have an ancient Egyptian origin. The style of making the bread, for example, we still have the sun bread in Luxor until now, and it's something that is known in Egypt 4,000 years ago, and people still doing the same thing. Also for the jewelry of the women, so we can see a lot of similarities between the jewelry that we can see over the walls of the temples and the tombs and women who lives in Upper Egypt until today. Another thing is related to the agriculture. When the people that see the scenes of the agriculture and the harvest and watering the lands and the process of the irrigation over the walls of the ancient Egyptian tombs, they see the same in Upper Egypt when they travel on the Nile cruiser. So they can watch by their eyes from the top of the Nile cruise how people doing the same process as if there is nothing changed during the 7,000 years ago.
Animals. I mean, it's that scary when I see one of the casts just standing the very same way of Bastet or Bastet,
yes.
This goddess.
Yes. I'm a cat person.
It was scary, but
to let
I
you know,
like
I'm
it
a cat
too.
person. We started domesticating cats and dogs, and also some other species and breeds like horses and different birds. This is since the ancient Egyptian history. So we are talking about, which is documented over the walls of the tombs, for example, in Saqqara, that can show you the wildlife, the lifestyle of the people over the walls. This is something that we need to talk about.
Sure. Moving or taking to another side of the coin, which is festivals. I think also the old Egyptians had their own festivals, their own occasions which they did celebrate in different means. And until the moment, since you've kindly mentioned Upper Egypt, I'm not going to mention Sidi Abu al-Haggaj, for example, in Luxor, or other festivals scattered all over Egypt, by the way, whether from the Delta to Upper Egypt. But how do you see this as something which is really continuing to be celebrated all over the year, not years or decades, over the centuries or over thousands of years, and we did not miss any of these festivals throughout the year?
You just mentioned the festival of Abu al-Haggaj, and if you ever attend the occasion of Abu al-Haggaj or the Moulad, you will see the people holding a boat over their shoulders, and they're moving from the mosque to outside the mosque. And this is something exactly like the festival of the Opet in Luxor, because if you just see the scenes over the walls in those Karna Calypso temples, you will see the priests holding the boat over their shoulders,
Yeah.
moving from one point to another. And this is something related to the old occasion of the Obi feast, which is equal to the modern pilgrimage for the Muslims today, and was celebrated every year in about 14 or 15 days.
And this has nothing to do with Muslims or Christians, simply because we do have
Let's
the
name it
festival
culture.
of Virgin Mary. It was only about a month ago or something. You are gonna find other like Abu al-Hajjaj, as you've kindly mentioned. You are gonna find, you know, scattered all over Egypt, by the way, and all Egyptians are enjoying that and eating some sweets.
Exactly.
Each related to each festival, of course. How do you see also having these sweets and eating sweets as a kind of celebrating together, and this has nothing to do with sects of the society, the poor and the rich, the middle class and even the needy brackets? How do you see this
So
also?
what you said, that during this day, all the people from different social standards, they're eating the same sweets, they're celebrating the same way. So it's a day that you can't know the difference between people, and all this like lines between the layers of the society being dissolved during this day, because they both eating the same food, they both celebrating in the same place, they have the same feelings during this day. So it's something that can show the unity of the society.
Amen.
In some point. And on the other hand, you can find that these festivals were celebrated in different places, not just in the capital.
Yeah.
But if you go to the provinces, there is local festivals was celebrated since the ancient Egyptian time.
And using music too, music and dancing, and
Of
it's
course,
concerts even.
We are the let's say that's a pioneer nation in music, because we invented some of the musical instruments that we're still using until today.
Yeah.
So we just use the harp, we use the flute, the clappers, we use what's called, it's something like the harp, very similar to the harp.
And trumpets,
the trumpet as
rhythm,
well,
yes.
exactly, the trumpets. So all these instruments was used for two different purposes. Music used for entertainment, and also used for some religious celebrations.
Spiritual or religious celebrations.
It's very spiritual.
Very spiritual, and I think it's like hypnotic. I mean, when you listen to old Egyptian civilization music, as we are trying to have them, you feel that you are in another era.
Exactly.
You are in another age. But I'd like to focus on this a little bit, sir, because we consider those who can play music as angels, as let's say high-ranking artists. I mean, we knew how to evaluate and how to hail the artists, how to hail those with artistic style. If you want to also elaborate on that.
Well, for the artistic style of like for the, what you said now is Egyptians used to have the music as a part of the religious practice inside the temples. For example, when the priests bring the offerings to the sanctuary, there is a group of priests, let's call them musical priests, who are holding the musical instruments and playing music while they are doing this, or while they are presenting.
Have they considered them magicians?
Some people consider them magicians, but it's better to say that they are from the clergy of the temple.
Yeah.
There are some of them being specialized in different like tasks. For example, some of them bring the offerings, some of them bring like cleaning the place, some of them playing music, and some other were responsible to fix the calendar inside the temple. So there is another part in the temple for the astronomer priests. So those priests were specialized in their job, but they also practice other tasks inside the temple, and one of it is the music, of course.
Sure. I'm also going to implement that on the Mummy's Parade. And this Mummy's Parade, when it was aired, or it was on air all over the world, I think millions of people watched it, and I think it was such a way to propagate for Egypt, and it was such a propaganda for how Egypt in its modern history is and its old history was. And we're continuing what our ancestors started. How do you see the importance of having such events, and how do you see the importance of this kind of propaganda for Egyptian history?
It is one of the biggest parades ever in the ancient and the modern Egyptian history. And a lot of people that I met, a lot of people were really truly inspired by the parade, and they just found that it was a great chance to Egypt to make a good propaganda for the country, to bring more tourists to, and that's what's happened after that. A lot of celebrities came to Egypt after the event. They just saw the show on the TV, and many of them decided to come here in Egypt after the opening of the new Egyptian Museum, and they're still waiting for the opening of the GEM, the Grand Egyptian Museum as well. So these types of parades and festivals brings a lot of people, and we don't know until now, unfortunately, what the importance for these festivals and how it can play a great role in bringing a lot of people, and consequently can bring a lot of money and can improve the economy as well.
You know, sir, as far as I know, that in the Great Egyptian Museum or the GEM, there are going to be audio rooms. I hope that we can find in these audio rooms Isis song, for example, Isis hymn, and to all the time be able to listen to such music, at least for us to know how a rich and I'm not going to say many other characteristics or many other adjectives, because Egypt is Egypt, and it's enough. To have this rich art, rich museum, to know well where we are coming from. Do you share me this dream?
Yes, I do share this, but also we need to make more like work on this. For example, young generations know nothing about the ancient Egyptian music. We need to teach them how to play with the ancient Egyptian instruments, for example, in the schools, so we can find a new generation. After a few years, it can playing like in the opera house, or
and to know the lyrics of our poems, how much it was very much delicate and priceless.
If you just read the old accounts of the Greek historians, all of them mentioned that we knew the principles of the music, we take it from Egypt. And like all the people know that it was like the base of the
Sir, we're still celebrating Ramadan with Wahawi, which is an old Egyptian song.
Exactly. Yeah, so it's something which is very, very old, and we need to revive this culture again, once again.
Sir, this is going to lead me to ask a final question about your dreams about the Grand Egyptian Museum. What are your dreams about the GEM? What should the Grand Egyptian Museum contain? What are the most important elements which is going to turn the GEM into a turning point in our cultural tourism or our museums tourism?
So I went to the museum many times, and we went through a special tour inside the different sections. So me personally got the great chance to see the museum of the solar boats, which is not yet open, and one of the most interesting things that I have saw ever is the section of the restoration, the restoration section, which is, I think it's the biggest, will be the biggest all over the world. It will be bigger than the Louvre. They will display about 220,000 pieces of artifacts.
And all of those working there are Egyptians.
Exactly.
This is very important.
This is something we need to be proud of.
Yeah.
Because for the first time since they opened the antiquities in Egypt, from the time of the French mission of Napoleon, we can say that proudly that we have a section that all the people, all the experts, all those people working in in the restoration of the mummies and all the monuments and whatsoever, they were all Egyptians. They are all Egyptians, and this is something to be proud of. One last thing that we need to mention about the new Egyptian Museum, I wish it will not going to be just a museum. It should be a cultural center, teaching people their ancient Egyptian language, to highlight the history of Egypt, and to make people know better about our Egyptian civilization.
Well, as usual, I enjoyed our discussion, and I'm going to leave you with a promise to see you again in more episodes of Nile Cruise, sir. Thank you very much. We were very much delighted to have with us Mr. Emad Hamdy, our tourism expert and our tour guide. Thank you, sir. And I'm going to share him some of my dreams regarding the gym or the Grand Egyptian Museum. I'd like to have a department for medical tourism, but in the old Egyptian civilization, the first OR table, the first to treat bilharzia with antimony, the first to fix our teeth, the first dentist, the first dental school, the first dental clinic. We do have a lot to speak about, and we do have a lot to be proud of. Right after the short break, I'm going to be back with more, so stay tuned.